Will the U.S. government, for the first time ever, default on our debt payments that we have? And if we do, what does this really look like? In the last 100 years, 6 countries have defaulted on their debt. Will we really go through it as America, the greatest nation in the world? How did we get here in the first place? Why are Republicans and Democrats fighting? Is this really a leverage game that the Republican controls the House and these guys want to raise the debt limit? And they're saying, well, before you lower your expenditure, we're not going to raise it. They're like, no, we want all of it and then some. So then President Trump in the town hall meeting says, let them default, because they're bullying you. So we're going to see if McCarthy's going to hold ground and say, nope, we're not doing this. Janet Yellen said we could be running out of money as early as June, and that scared the crap out of a lot of people in the market. So there's a lot of things going on. We're going to dive into this to really see, is U.S. going to default or not? So during chaotic, uncertain times, sometimes, people don't have somebody to talk to. You can't talk to your wife, your husband, your family, your mom, your dad, because you're running a business, you're a salesperson, you're a C-suite executive. You got so many things going on. You need to talk to somebody, and you want to go talk to a therapist, but you don't want to go into an office because you're sitting down with somebody, talking to them, 3 other people see you in the waiting room, like, I want this thing to be discreet. Where can I go to talk to somebody? Today's sponsor, BetterHelp, allows you to meet with a therapist in a discreet way. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get started, you just have to answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from an in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom picked for you, more schedule and flexibility, and at a more affordable price. So get 10% off your first month by going to betterhelp.com/valuetainment. The link is also below, so whether you go to betterhelp.com/valuetainment or you click on a link below, you get 10% off for your first month. So if you get value from this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Let's get right into it. First thing we need to all know about is the fact that the government has access to, tools that we don't have, you and I don't have. They can manipulate money in ways you and I cannot do. But before we get into the levels of manipulation they can do, let's kind of figure out how the government gets money in the first place. There's 2 ways they get money. One is either through taxes, the other one is through bonds. So taxes is taxes, corporate, individual, any other way that they get their money. The other one is by you and I buying bonds from them. Treasury bills, T-bonds, short-term, mid-term, long-term. That is one way that they get money from the public. We'll talk a little more about the Treasuries later on, but let's first look at the history of debt ceiling in America. So the power to issue money is specifically granted to the U.S. Congress by the Constitution. The debt ceiling was established by the Second Liberty Bond Act of 1917. It was not created as a restriction on the federal government's ability to borrow it. It was created to simplify the process and provide the U.S. Treasury with more flexibility in managing the country's debt. So pre-1917, the government had to get each line of debt that they wanted to get approved. It was one by one, and like, listen, this is taking too much time. Can we kind of speed up the process instead of having to do this? And then boom, World War I happens. That was a perfect excuse for them to say, why don't we do it through a debt ceiling that we don't have to get approval every time? Obviously, the government likes that because they need less approvals. So here's what's crazy about it. It went as a way to improve and speed up the process and streamline it to now being politicized, and they're using it as a weapon and a point of leverage against each other, which is causing the mayhem that we have today. It's causing Congress to be divided. So now Congress has raised, extended, or revised the debt ceiling nearly 100 times since it was established. Even in 1939 and 1941, Congress established the first limits that allowed the U.S. Treasury the ability to issue new debt as long as the total amount outstanding remained under a specified ceiling. Now, if I was to ask you, since 1960, we've raised, revised, extended the debt limit nearly 78 times, right? How many times do you think it was under a Republican president? How many times do you think it was under a Democratic president? Ready? Here's the numbers. 49 times it was under a Republican president. 29 times was under Democratic president. Why? Because most of the time when the president is president, the House is owned by the opposite side. So if Republican president, Dems control the House. If the Democratic president, Republicans own the House. So you see how this thing kind of works out. So meaning, even though it's a Republican president, typically the left owns the House. They're the ones that are raising the debt limit. But listen, both sides do it regularly because they want to spend more money. The chance of getting these guys to want to say, hey, you got to spend less. Good luck getting these guys to want to spend less on either side of the aisle. So now, last 100 years, let's look at how many governments have actually defaulted. Okay, first one, Germany, 1932, 1948, caused by the inability to repay the reparations imposed after World War I. The default and subsequent economic instability contributed to the rise of the Nazi Party. That's Germany, number one. Number two, Argentina, 1951, 1982, 2001, 2014, 2020. It's fair to say Argentina is the GOAT, the dynasty of defaulting on their government's debt. No one's done a better job defaulting on the debt than Argentina. This is not a good area to be the best one in. Due to unsustainable fiscal policies, economic crisis, and volatile commodity prices, the defaults have resulted in severe economic recessions, high inflation, and political stability. Number three, Russia, 1998, caused by a collapse in confidence in the Russian government's ability to repay its debt, leading to a default. This led to a sharp devaluation of the ruble, a severe economic contraction, and political upheaval. Four, Greece, 2012. Largest sovereign default in history. Causes included structural weaknesses in the Greek economy, misreported government financial data, and the global financial crisis of 2008. This crisis resulted in severe austerity measures, high unemployment, a significant contraction in the Greek economy, and a European sovereign debt crisis. Number five, Venezuela, 2017. The Venezuelan debt crisis was a result of a drop in oil prices, economic mismanagement, and political instability. The country has since experienced hyperinflation, severe shortages of basic goods, and a humanitarian crisis. Number six, Lebanon, 2020. Caused by a banking crisis, political instability, and civil unrest resulted in severe economic contraction, hyperinflation, and a humanitarian crisis. So if we look at all the six and see what things they have in common, this is what you would find. Economic mismanagement, political instability, external shocks, and unsustainable debt levels. So the question becomes, since 1776, we've never once defaulted. Will this be the first time we do? No one knows. We'll find out in the next 4 to 8 weeks. So the main question becomes, what's so different about America versus Germany, Argentina, Russia, Greece, Venezuela, Lebanon? How different are we? There's a lot of people that are saying that's not going to happen in our lifetime, but why not? What if it does? Let's take a look at this to see how different U.S. is than these 6 countries we just talked about. First, U.S. Treasuries are considered the safest and most liquid assets in the world. It's seen as pristine collateral or tier 1 asset, even though some people recently, Basel III is now looking at gold as being a pristine collateral, but still U.S. Treasury is all the way at the top. They play a crucial role as a collateral in global financial markets, as they are often used to secure loans, margin accounts, and other financial transactions. So let's look at what causes U.S. Treasuries to be pristine collateral or safe. Number one, low credit risk. The U.S. Treasuries are backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Number two, high liquidity. U.S. Treasuries are highly liquid due to their deep and well-established secondary market. This allows market participants to buy and sell those with ease, making them an ideal form of collateral. Three, price stability. U.S. Treasuries have relatively stable prices compared to other assets like stocks and commodities. The price stability is advantageous for financial institutions as it reduces the risk of collateral value fluctuations. Why does fluctuations matter? Because fluctuations in collateral value leads to margin calls. You don't want to have margin calls. Four, global acceptance. The U.S. Treasuries are widely accepted and used as collateral worldwide, providing ease of use for international transactions. And last but not least, five, repo and reverse repo market. The repurchase agreement market and reverse repo market is a critical part of the short-term funding and money markets. They facilitate the flow of cash and securities between financial institutions, central banks, and other market participants. So again, this is what leads to the whole quantitative easing or quantitative tightening market. Easing, if they want to, through the Fed. Let's put more money into the market by buying bonds from banks, right? So that money goes in, the banks get more money, hoping that the banks start lending money to people, and boom, the economy goes up, right? Small business owners, all this stuff. Quantitative tightening, which is like, listen, we got a little bit too much money in there. Let's take money off the table to tighten the market, to tighten loans, and to reduce inflation. Those are two different ways they can do. But regardless, this causes U.S. Treasuries to be very safe investment. Why many don't think default will actually happen. So now let's actually go there and say, let's just say we do default. What happens to America? Here's 8 things that happen. Number one, global financial crisis. A default would cause severe disruptions in the global financial markets, as U.S. Treasuries are used as the benchmark for other debt securities and as collateral in numerous transactions. This could lead to a liquidity crisis, credit crunch, and increased market volatility. Number two, economic chaos. Financial markets would be destabilized and the flow of credit would be constrained. Number three, currency devaluation. The U.S. dollar might lose its status as a world reserve currency, leading leading to a depreciation of the currency and increased inflationary pressures. Number 4, geopolitical implications. A U.S. default could diminish the country's global influence and potentially alter the balance of power in the international financial system. Number 5, loss of confidence. A U.S. default would erode global confidence in the country's ability to honor its obligations, potentially leading to a decline in demand for U.S. Treasuries and a rise in borrowing costs for the U.S. government. 6, government shutdown. Without the ability to borrow, the government would have to cut spending drastically. This could lead to government shutdowns, layoffs of federal employees, and cuts in services, affecting everything from Social Security payments to military spending. 7, legal and constitutional crisis. The 14th Amendment you keep hearing about to the Constitution states that the validity of the public debt shall not be questioned, so a debt default could potentially trigger a constitutional crisis. And last but not least, number 8, impact on credit rating. The U.S. could lose its AAA rating status, leading to even higher borrowing costs in the future and further damaging the country's fiscal situation. So in other words, this is catastrophic if that were to happen. So the left and the right needs to know that. That's why they're both banking on one's going to cave and they're going to finally say, here's the limit, do what you got to do, just don't spend this much. They're going to figure out a way to negotiate. Hopefully they will. Neither one of them. One's going to say, well, if the default is going to be on you, Congress, McCarthy, you're going to have to live with this and your legacy. And Congress is going to say, hey, Biden, forget about, me as a Speaker of the House. You're the president. Everyone's going to say the first default happened under a Biden administration. Nobody 50 years from now is going to know who the Congress was. They're going to know who the president was. Remember how earlier at the beginning of the video I said the government has the ability to manipulate money and kind of use collaterals multiple times that you and I cannot do to kind of make it look like they're okay? There's this concept called the Treasury ReHypothecation. Just kind of stay with me here as we go through this together. So this is the practice of reusing pledged U.S. securities as collateral for additional loans or financial transactions. So let me explain to you what this really means. So let's just say I'm going to go out there and buy a house. So I go to the bank, I get a $500,000 loan, I buy this house. I own the house, but the bank really owns the house. So imagine if the bank can use this house as a collateral. It's my collateral, I'm using that, I'm going to pay it back. If I don't, the bank can come and take it away from me. But what if the bank now gives that loan out to somebody and they say we can use this guy's house as a collateral, and they do that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kind of sounds like, Pat, what are you talking about? That's exactly what they can do. They can use the same exact asset as collateral multiple times and no one knows it or sees it. This is kind of what happens behind closed doors. So if this still doesn't make sense to you, to go to a time in history where we can kind of see what caused the collapse in the market, it's 2008. You ever seen the movie Big Short? Remember the whole mortgage-backed securities? What was the problem with that? Exactly what we just talked about, the rehypothecation concept. Let me explain it to you. So in 2008, rehypothecation came under increased scrutiny due to the risk it can pose to the financial markets. As such, there have been regulatory efforts to limit the extent of rehypothecation, particularly in derivatives markets. Mortgage-backed securities were used as collateral in many financial transactions leading up to 2008 financial market, and this was a misuse. It was constantly being used left and right. So look, if you do it right and nobody pays attention to it and everything is good, you can make billions of dollars. It's like having margins, having all your money in your short trade account or your E-Trade account, and everything's margin, but the market keeps going up, and I'm like, man, look how much money I'm making. I would have normally only made 50%. I just made 150% because I'm using somebody else's money, and then boom, market crashes. Now you're like, I thought I was going to lose $1 million, but no, I owe $2.5 million? Exactly. So it's good when the market's great. It's terrible when the market's bad. All right, so this next number is going to scare you a little bit. So the U.S.'s GDP is roughly $20 trillion, right? They only have $200 billion in their general account. That's kind of like, you may say, that's a lot of money. Oh my God, the government has $200 billion. That's so much money. It's not. That's like you making $200,000 a year, okay? But you only have $200 in the bank. Do you realize how scary that is? What do you have to do if you only have $200 in the bank and you're making $200 grand a year? Super problematic. This is why they're so scared about what's going to happen. But here's the concern. The reason why Republicans on House are saying, listen, lower your expenditure is because this is what's happened to the interest on our debt today. Look at this chart on what's happening with our interest payment. Do you see the sudden spike that we went from $600 billion a year to suddenly $1 trillion? Almost $1 trillion of interest payment. The U.S. cannot afford that the way we're going right now. This is why they're saying we got to raise the debt limit. The other side is saying, why are you spending like a crazy man? Let's kind of tone it down a little bit. Then we'll give you the increased debt limit. That's the real battle that's going on. So So with the election cycle being here, one of the things that's being talked about is Social Security, right? So both sides wants the 65, the vote, the older Social Security, baby boomer market, they want that vote. But, Social Security was a net positive. We were doing okay with the general account. If you look at this chart here right now, what it looked like in 2008, 2009, we're doing okay. And then all of a sudden, look at 22 and look at 23. We're now starting to lose money. And so they're saying we're going to have payments being missed even for Social Security. So the left is saying, are you promising to not do anything to Social Security? The right is saying, listen, man, we got to kind of figure something out here because we got to do something. We can't afford to go the way we're going right now. So the left wants to blame the right. The right is saying, let's be responsible. This is a whole mayhem going on here. Eventually, do not be surprised if they increase the age for Social Security benefits, 67, 69, 72. Mathematically, they're going to have to eventually go there or stop the benefits. They're obviously not going to stop the benefits. They're probably going to increase retirement, but it's going to be very painful before they get there. So what's going to happen? There's a couple things that's going to happen. We've never defaulted. We've never ran out of money. So they're going to have to figure it out because neither one of them want this on their resume. But there's a couple things that people are speculating could happen. One is continuing resolution can be used until an agreement is made if the Treasury general account does run out of money. And a continuing resolution is legislation used by the U.S. Congress to fund government agencies and programs in the absence of former appropriation law. Others are arguing that Biden should invoke the 14th Amendment to raise the debt ceiling himself. And that's kind of problematic because when you look at 14th Amendment Section 4, the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payments of pensions and bounties for services and suppressing insurrection or rebellion shall not be questioned. So this is where lawyers get involved and say, well, that's not technically what it says. You can't really do this. You can do this. You should do this. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But here's probably what's going to happen. From 1776 till today, they've figured it out. They're probably going to figure it out because these guys in politics, one thing they fear is not being reelected. And if they default, there's going to be a lot of people not getting reelected. And these guys don't know how to make money any other way but politics. Most of them have no clue of how to make money in the free market. If they did, they probably wouldn't be involved in politics. Not taking a shot at them, but you understand what I'm saying to you. So they're probably going to end up figuring it out. How painful will it be? Both sides have to give something up. Don't know who's going to give up more. This is when negotiation matters. Will it be McCarthy? Will it be the other side? We don't know, but we're definitely going to find out in the next 4, 6, 8 weeks. If you got value from the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I got another video I want you to watch if you like this one here. Will the dollar collapse? If you've not seen that, click here to watch it. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, bye-bye.